All right, guys, welcome back to week 3 of the head coach episode. I'm here with Yanni. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Pretty good. We missed our free agent episode this week only because we had the doubleheader on Monday night. It's late. I already stay up late editing these things, anyways. But I guess just like to touch on that really quick. Who did you spend the most fab on this week?
Blake Corum. I went and shot offers of like up to $9 or $10, so 10% of my fab on Blake Corum. I feel like that's a really solid RB5 dab. Like I feel great if that's my RB5 rest of season. So I was happy to go ahead and spend on him. What about you?
I spent $27 on Juwan Johnson. So I don't know if it's an overpay or not. It was a Colston Loveland and Evan Ingram roster.
Yeah.
So kind of missed on the tight end in the draft, and I figured averaging like 10 targets a week, like why not? Is like a low end to mid range tight end one rest of the season. We'll see if that works out for me though, or if I got scammed. But yeah, let's just get right into the game breakdowns this weekend, and I will start first. We have the Thursday night showdown. This should be a good game. The Miami Dolphins going into Buffalo to play the Bills. I think the schedule makers were probably a lot more excited about this matchup before the season started. That's for sure. Dolphins applied team total of 19 points, and the Bills have an implied team total of 30 and a half points. For the Dolphins, we're going to start my favorite player, Devon Achan, and Tyreek Hill. And then we're sitting Waddle if he goes, and Tua, aka Humpty Dumpty. Then for the Bills, we're going to start Josh Allen, James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, and we're going to tricky decision Khalil Shakir. So let's start with the Bills first. This Dolphins defense is really bad. The team is really bad, but on top of like I guess the offensive issues that they're having that are getting more headlines, this defense is also ranked near the bottom of the league in pretty much everything. So this is a no-brainer starting Josh Allen here. The only worry I would have is if the Bills blow out the Dolphins so bad they decide to stop throwing or whatever. James Cook, I think that to me he's like approaching top 5 running back rest of season. That might be like insanely bullish, but listen, man, the usage looks really good here. He's a good player. They just broke him off, and you know, he's just all he's doing is making plays. Dalton Kincaid, this one. He's not going to get the type of volume that a lot of other tight ends will get, right? Like he's not getting the 10 targets Jawan Johnson gets, but the targets he does get may count a little bit more coming from Josh Allen. He got the touchdown week 1. We think he's fine enough at a thin position to call him a start in a plus matchup. And then Keon Coleman, same idea. This Dolphin secondary is atrocious. Right now, at least for the time being, he's profiling as Josh Allen's ex receiver. Probably the number one pass catcher in the offense. So might as well roll him out. Probably more like a flex to me than like a wide receiver 2 or something like that. Then we're going to tricky decision Khalil Shakir. I mean, he was the first wide receiver going for the Buffalo Bills in drafts. The issue has been the high ankle. He went down with a high ankle in preseason. He's played since week 1, but like it takes players a while to get back from that high ankle. That's why we're going to tricky decision him here. Like I would suggest looking elsewhere, but I think that pretty soon he'll be close to full run for the Dolphins, man, we're just going to try and squeeze out every last bit of fantasy value we can here before this thing goes completely dry. Devon Achan, he had some ownership over the Bills last year on the ground. That is very true. I think he rushed I think he rushed for like 130 yards or something week 2 last year when he played this team. I'm not expecting a similar result here in production. This Bills defense can be got on the ground, but this Dolphins O line stinks. Achan, I think, is going to get you home on like the little ticky tack behind the line of scrimmage stuff. He'll PPR scam his way there. Decent play this week. I don't think you can sit him in good conscience. And then Tyreek, it was good to see Tua going. Like Tua made some throws last week. I think that maybe I overreacted on his demise. I still think Tua's cooked. I still think it's completely over for him. But he hit a couple of throws when he had the opportunity, and Tyreek had a couple of long catches. We'll start him here because we think the Dolphins go down and they probably have to throw. Do I love the start? No, I don't love it, but I think this is an acceptable This is an acceptable start given the progress we saw last week. Waddle, I mean, do you really want to start a guy who's popping up on the injury report on this team right now, going up against the Buffalo Bills? I don't think so. You should have other options as well, so go with those instead. And then Tua, I'm sure like if you're in a super flex league, maybe he hit waivers after week 1. Maybe it was appropriate to pick him up like if you just need another body, but don't do it here. Don't do it here. There's some crazy metrics. Hayden Winks put out a chart this week that was kind of showing like what quarterbacks for every drop back, like what their I guess the final result is like turning out to be. Like you can have a target, you can be sacked, you could like throw the ball away, all the different things that happen during a drop back, right? Tua's chart was the only one that like only had 2 options. It was either I get sacked or it's a target for the running back, or not for the running back, but for the pass catcher. I think the Bills are going to come after him here. I think the Bills are just going to curb stomp him. I would not be starting Tua. I hope he wears a Guardian cap for this one. That's all I'll really say. What do you think, Yanni? Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, it's going to be a really pass-happy game script for the Dolphins, and Tyreek Hill actually has been separating downfield. So I think he's a good start. I think he has to be in your lineup. And then A-Chain, I think he's going to get his dump-offs. And I know that seems like that may be a pro Waddle thing. I just don't like it, man. He's been dinged up all week. Like, he was a little inconsistent this year. I would look for other options there.
Yep. I'm looking forward to potentially getting my dog his walk in a little bit earlier if this one gets out of hand. I wouldn't mind missing like a 20-30 minute window of this game.
Okay, this game's pretty boring from like a starts and sits perspective. The Raiders with a 20.75 implied team total at the Skins with a 23.75 implied team total. For the Raiders, I actually think Geno's a perfectly fine streamer this week with all the injuries. Like, I doubt there's going to be inclement weather there. It doesn't look like it. And I know he's been a little rough to start the year, but I think the offense actually has looked good. I think they've looked competent. And like, if you have a quarterback injury, he's like the top quarterback on a lot of my waivers because I have a couple Brock rosters. I think that's perfectly fine. Genty, I know it hasn't been ideal, but you're certainly not going to sit him. There's just no way. Bowers, we got kind of lucky this week. He opened up the week limited, not as a DNP, which I was sort of expecting. If he had pushed that knee too far, I think he would have. He certainly was not healthy last week, not even close, but you're not sitting him if he goes. And I do actually think we got a little bit of good news with the limited practice here. And then Myers. Myers is getting tremendous, like high floor wide receiver 2 usage. With I would expect some wide receiver 1 spike weeks here if he catches a touchdown. Myers is the sort of flex that you just feel fantastic about. You got him in the late 7th, early 8th round, and I just that's exactly who I want in my flex. He's not going to screw you over any given week, but then when he catches the touchdown, you're going to have weeks where you win from that 15 to 20 spot from your flex. This is a great matchup to get him in there too. Soft defense. For the Skins, Jaden, it seems like he's trending toward playing. I've seen some like consternation amongst Twitter docs that he may not go. I've seen like up to 2 weeks, and then I've seen he's going to go this week. I don't know. They're going to keep that under wraps until the game comes up. If Jaden goes, you're obviously starting him. If not, you're downgrading all his pieces. I still think you're probably starting Bill and Terry. Like, I would feel fine about those starts. It's funny. We actually forgot to put Debo on there. Debo's also a start. Look, I know Terry's been slow. You kind of expect a slow first month with the holdouts. It happened to CD. It happened to Chase. It's happening to Terry. It just is what it is. I still think you start him as a fine flex this week. I think Debo probably outscores Terry again if it's Mariota this week. I think Debo's going to get fed that short work. I expect him to do really, really well. And then Ertz just, he gets so much red zone usage work. I don't know what kind of roster. Like, you'd have to be in pretty rough shape to be rolling Ertz out there, but he's averaging 12 and a half PPR points per game. Like, that's a perfectly good tight end in fantasy. Again, even with Mariota, I think I would be starting.
Yeah, my only comment on this one, I think the Redskins are pretty self-explanatory. Like, I mean, Jaden's good and you want those pieces, especially with Eckler out there. I love the Bill outlook rest of season. But for the Raiders, despite how bad they looked against the Chargers on Monday night, I still think this is an improved offense. I would expect a better one from Geno here. And Bowers, I would just Bowers and Genty, right? Like Genty, I just think that over time it's going to get better, right? And Bowers is just the knee getting a little bit more healthy. But that's it. Be patient with your Raiders, guys. I think you'll be happy you had them at the end of the year. All right, next one we got the Falcons going into Carolina to play my Panthers. The Falcons have an implied team total of 24.5 points. The Panthers have an implied team total of 19 points. For the Falcons, we're going to go ahead and start Michael Penix Jr. this week. We're going to start Bijan and we're going to start Drake London. Then for the tricky decisions, we're going to start Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney. Then for the Panthers, we're going to start Tet and Chuba Hubbard here, and then we're going to sit Bryce and Jatavian Sanders. So let's start with the Falcons first. This is a bottom of the barrel defense they're playing this week in the Panthers. They've stopped no one like ever. This defense really makes no negative plays. Bijan to me is probably the RB1 this week. I think this is a smash spot for him. Like compared to compared to the Vikings they played last week, where Bijan almost went for 200 yards. This Panthers team is like JV. Like it's not close. Drake London, be patient with him if you're a Drake London manager. Last week against the Vikings, I don't think that anyone expected that game to be as much of a blowout or not close as it was, right? It wasn't even like a blowout at any point. It just wasn't close, and the Falcons were content running the ball. I think it may be the same in this one too. I don't like the Panthers' chances to cover here. So it would not shock me if it was another London down week, but based on where you started him or based on where you drafted him, I feel like you have to start him. Be patient with the player. If you're a London manager, please be patient. If you are not a London manager, I would be exploring trades. I think that all of the underlying metrics that made people bullish on him in the offseason, I think they're still valid. Then for Pitts and Mooney, these are just kind of the other offensive pieces, right? We're gonna call them tricky decisions just because like their roles aren't as like defined, and we just feel like this is a Falcons run the ball game against a much worse side in the Panthers. And for the Panthers, I think this Falcons defense is actually much improved. So I feel like there's a couple guys, mostly Chuba and Tet, right, that have been doing pretty well for your fantasy team so far. I think this may be a tough one for the entire squad, really, but at this point, I don't see how you could sit them, right? Like you'd have to have some pretty incredible options to be able to afford to sit these guys. AJ Terrell is out for the Falcons this week, so in theory, that's a good matchup for Tet, but Bryce has to get him the ball, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're still starting him. And then Chuba, he hasn't been as efficient rushing the ball this year, but he has gotten more of those like dump offs. He doesn't have a rushing score yet, actually. Both of his touchdowns on the air are receiving. But given like just running back's been hard to find points at this year, right? Like I would feel fine starting him as like a RB2. And then Bryce and Jatavian, this is more so giving respect to the Falcons defense, right? I think they had 6 sacks on JJ last week. Week 1 against Baker, they roughed him up too. Until Bryce looks better, no thank you, especially against a defense that I think is probably a little bit better than the market thinks. What do you think, Yanni? Was that fair?
Yeah, and I would give the Falcons a lot more credit if AJ Terrell were healthy. He's just not. So I think they'll be able to be passed on, but I don't think it'll matter, right? So okay, Packers at the Browns. Packers with an implied team total of 24.5. Browns with an implied team total of 17. I'm expecting just an absolute defensive slugfest here. Both of these teams have just been brutal on defense. The Browns' rush defense has been amazing. Despite that, you're still going to start Jacobs. Obviously, he's a top 15 pick. He's one of the best running backs in football. He's a locked-in weekly top 12 option. You're not going to sit him. I don't know if this is going to be one of his better weeks of the year. I mean, the Browns gave up, I think, 2.6 and a half PPR to Derrick Henry. Pretty rough, but you're never sitting him. And then Kraft and Love. Love is actually a perfectly good streamer this week. If they can't move the ball on the ground, they're going to move the ball through the air. And either way, they're going to move the ball. They're going to have to score points to win the game. Love's been consistent between 17 and 18 points this year. I think he had like a little bit over 15, a little bit over 20 in his first 2 starts. I'm actually streaming him this week. In one league where I had my quarterbacks go down. I had J.J. McCarthy and Brock Purdy go down. And then the weird call, or not weird call, I guess the notable call with the Packers is we're just going to sit their receivers. I'm not interested in Dobbs drawing the Ward matchup. I'm not interested in whatever Savion Williams in the Reed role. And then Matthew Golden. I loved Golden. I have a few shares of him, but like he's absolutely not startable until something changes. Is this the first week we see Golden incorporated into the offense and made kind of a centerpiece? Maybe. Certainly don't drop him. I haven't dropped him yet. He's my wide receiver 5 on a few rosters, like hoping something happens there. But I mean, you can't flex any of these guys right now. If in daily fantasy you want to take a shot on one of them, like if Golden's around $3,800 or $4,000, which I imagine he is, maybe that's a cool thing to do, but not in redraft. And then I guess it is notable for the Browns too. We're big Quinshon Judkins guys on this channel. I love the kid as a talent. I would have been taking him everywhere at like the 6-7 turn or the 5-6 turn this year had he not had the suspension issues looming. And then I didn't really know, I was super in on Rashee Rice, which means I didn't get a lot of Quinshon. I didn't want two suspension situations floating on all my rosters. I'm kind of bummed about that, man. He looked excellent when he was on the field. He looks like he has a chance to come out of the gate as the most pro-ready running back in what was dubbed a legendary running back class. I don't want to pick at the Green Bay matchup, dude. I don't. You saw the difference, right, in the Lions from the Bears to Green Bay. Now that's from like a bottom 5 to a top 5 defense, so that's maybe not a fair comparison. This is not a matchup I'm like excited to get my guys out there for. Bill went from looking pretty good in week 1 to looking pretty bad, and really Jaden looked pretty bad. Terry McLaurin. I just don't want to attack this matchup at all. And I, Ted was saying before when we were doing these, like, I do feel like one of the receivers for the Browns goes off this week, especially with the negative game script that's coming. We just don't know which one it is. I'm not flexing anyone here, and I'm not putting Quentin Johnson as my RB2 this week on any of my rosters with him. I think next week you're good to go, man. But this week I'm going to avoid it. And then the one place the Packers have been a little bit squidgy is giving up receptions to tight end. So we're going to put both Njoku and Fannin Jr. as sort of tricky decisions. I think if they're your tight end twos on whatever, your tight end 2 rosters, 2 tight end rosters, I think for Njoku, for a lot of people, he's going to be their tight end 1. So far, Fannin is outscoring him a little bit in per game this year. I'm kind of close. I actually have me and Ted's home league. I took Njoku and I went and bid on Fannin Jr. and I'm waiting to see which one wins the fight. It looks like it's going to be Fannin. I would assume Njoku gets traded at some point this year. But until that happens, I'm rolling Njoku over Fannin. I'm giving it one more week. If Fannin outscores him again, he's in. But either way, I think they're both perfectly fine low-end tight end 1s, high-end tight end 2s this week. But if you have someone like Juwan Johnson, that's not close. Start Juwan. But yeah, that's sort of what the nature of a tricky decision is, right? You certainly do not push them over guys like Kraft or Warren. Or I would start them over Hawkinson, to give you an idea. I think Hawkinson's looked terrible. I would start either one over Hawkinson. I would start either one over Kincaid. I would start them over Ferguson. So they're right there. They're right there in that 10 to 12 rank, certainly over Goddard all day. Yeah, I think there's going to be some passing to go around. We'll see what it amounts to, but I think there's going to be yards to be had through the air for the tight ends here.
Yeah, I agree, man. With Njoku and Fannin, I just think they're both good players, right? Like they're like the Walmart version of Brady and Hernandez. That's what we were saying pre-show.
Yeah.
We're only not starting Quinshon Judkins here. At least in my opinion, because we're giving some respect here to the Packers defense. I'm not there yet on this Packers defense being elite. I know everyone is kind of already crowned them. I think that a team with a strong passing offense that doesn't have their best receiver coming off a holdout might be able to have some success here. But this is the Cleveland Browns and Joe Flacco we're talking about. I think it's safe to fade your Browns. All right, next one we got the Steelers going into New England to play the Patriots. The Steelers have an implied team total of 23 points, and the Patriots have an implied team total of 21.5 points. For the Steelers, we're going to start Jalen Warren and DK Metcalf. We're going to sit Jonnu Smith and Calvin Austin III. Look at me knowing what CV3 means. And then we're going to tricky decision Aaron, and we're going to call him out specifically as like a DFS or superflex option, not quarterback 1 this week, but we think he'll get some points, I think. Then for the Patriots, we're going to start Drake May and Ramondre Stevenson. We're going to sit all of the Patriots wide receivers, and we're going to tricky decision Trevion Henderson and Hunter Henry. And let's start with the Steelers here first. Tough week last week against what I think is a pretty good defense in the Seattle Seahawks. This Patriots defense is, I think, much worse. I think they've given up like 700 yards or something passing this year. They've really gotten passed on. They've been missing Christian Gonzalez, and they have some other injuries on that unit. And the Steelers offense, like it's not the same. I don't think the Steelers offense is a good one, but they're in some way functional with Aaron running the show. So we're going to start Jalen Warren here. It seems like he's kind of clearly taken the reins as the RB1. I think that was a miss of mine coming into the offseason. I didn't think that Jalen Warren was like a starting quality running back in this league. And I was really bullish on Caleb Johnson. It doesn't really matter, though, what I think anymore because he's getting the work and he's he's making hay on those dump offs. He had that sick like 65-yard dump off run last week against in a plus matchup. Like I feel like with how tough running back has been to get points out of this year, you got to do it. Same with DK. I feel like he's more of a flex to me. He just hasn't, he hasn't been getting those big plays like down the field that he was getting with Geno, right, or Russ for like the majority of his career. It's going to look different for him this year, I think, but he's still going to be startable in a plus matchup. Jonnu and Calvin Austin, it's just like, what are we doing here? That's just getting a little bit too excited about your Steelers pieces. And then, like I said, the Aaron theory here is this is not a very good defense, and he's looked pretty good. I mean, for a 41-year-old, like this is the best quarterback the Steelers have had since old Ben Roethlisberger. I think that anywhere between 15 and 22 points is within his range of outcomes this week. If you need him in a pinch, I think he could do it. For the Patriots, I think that we were still like in the early stages of our returns for this year, but this Steelers defense does not look the same to me. They've gotten destroyed. They've gotten destroyed on the ground by Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. They've gotten destroyed in the air. Like really, I don't know what's going on with them. But if we're going to call them a plus matchup, right, and we're going to kind of try and hit on this, Drake May, we'll go ahead and start him this week. He did pretty good against the Dolphins. I mean, it is the Miami Dolphins, so take that with a grain of salt. But in a plus matchup here that I think will probably be a pretty competitive game, I think the Patriots are going to want to throw to catch up. Ramondre, I know you Hendo truthers are out there. You did not like seeing the Ramondre, not breakout, but I guess like just kind of presence in the offense last week. We're going to stick by our priors, at least in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask Yanni about this and get his thoughts. But I still think that Henderson is a fine, like, long-term play. If you have him, I wouldn't be moving him for nothing. But Roger is going to be a piece of this Patriots offense. It just is what it is. He's getting paid. Like, he's not a bad player. And if Hendo does dumb stuff like get like three holding penalties or whatever he had, he's gonna not be on the field as much. Mike Vrabel, he kind of does not always trust the rookies. You gotta like really earn Mike Vrabel's trust. We think that'll happen eventually, but not this week. Ramondre is the one we prefer here. But because the Steelers defense is soft, like, Henderson will tricky decision him. I don't think he's a must sit. Like if you're really strapped for fantasy points, he had a couple injuries, what have you. I could see the argument for starting him. And then Hunter Henry, in theory, it's a good matchup, but he's just an inconsistent player, right? Like he had 8 targets week 1, only 3 last week. It's just the thing with him. You got to pick your spot. I would see him as like a high variance tight end 2 to tight end 1. Like you're just kind of rolling the dice with it, but I think he could do worse. What do you think, Yanni?
Yeah, the Henderson thing, I mean, I think long-term he will be the guy there. I don't think he's ever going to get goal line work, so Ramondre is still going to be a reasonable, contributor. There was that interview that went pretty viral this week about that wheel route was supposed to be a Travion route, and he blew it on so many pass blocks they couldn't have him in for that. So it's like, if he's not, his thing was that he was one of the best graded pass blockers as a running back in NFL or in college football history coming into the draft. Like if he's not doing that and he doesn't have the third down role, he's not startable until he does. And I actually think Ramondre's looked like pretty good. So I'm flexing Ramondre in one league, which was pretty surprising to me. It was a 0 RB team, and I'm starting Javonte Williams and Ramondre. So I can't believe that those two guys are going to be in my starting lineup at the same time, but they are. So I think you're fine. And then also I looked it up because I was curious. DK Metcalf's separation score from fantasy data points through 2 weeks. He is currently 96 out of 96 charted receivers in average separation score per route run. So he has not been separating at all. I'm pretty surprised he's like staying afloat. And then in route win rate, he's 53rd out of 96. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe something has changed, but he was never a great route runner to me. He's like just a giant refrigerator of a human out wide,
Yeah.
right? So.
Okay, Rams at Eagles again. This one, there's really not a whole lot to say with the Rams every week. You kind of know what the deal is, right? You're starting Puka, you're starting Adams, you're starting Kyron. Quinyon Mitchell is going to draw a matchup this week. I would imagine he's going to shadow Puka. if I had to guess, but I don't recall if he moved into the slot to follow guys last week. I actually think he took Pickens or week 1 when it was Pickens and Lamb. I think I recall for the most part him going outside on Pickens. Then I remember at halftime they switched him. But I don't know. Expect whichever one draws the Quinyon Mitchell matchup for most of the game probably has a little bit of a down week, whether that's going to be Devontae or Puka. But I think both of them, they're getting such great usage. First of all, Puka might be the wide receiver 1 overall in the year. Second of all, Devontae is probably a top 20 wide receiver with his usage, maybe top 15 if the offense really gets going. So yeah, you're ripping him. Kyren, not the best matchup, but in a week where everyone's kind of panicking about his usage, you heard me say I went out and blew a bunch of fab on Corum. That's because I view him as a clear handcuff. Corum only got in when it was a blowout, and his reduced usage from Kyren was 19 touches. He's seen over to like around 20 touches a game for the first 2 weeks. You're never sitting that, even in a bad matchup. You hope he gets in the end zone. If he doesn't get in the end zone, you're probably going to get an 8 to 11 point week. So it's going to be like an RB3 week if he doesn't get in the end zone. That just is what it is. This is a really tough matchup. And it's going to be a tough game script, I think. For the Eagles, you're never sitting Hurts. You're never sitting Saquon. Saquon absolutely eats the Rams alive. Looking forward to it this week. And then A.J. Brown, we are going to start him one more week, right? I mean, you drafted him in the top 20. Like, you're not sitting him yet. I have a roster where I was trying to pick between Egbuka and AJ Brown as my third wide receiver on there. But I'm probably going to rip AJ Brown. But I was close. I was close to switching him out. I don't know what the deal is, man. I don't know when the passing volume comes around. I'm a lot more pessimistic than Theodore is. But I don't know, man. I just don't feel good about it. I really, really tried to avoid drafting AJ Brown. Like, I drafted around him. I reached on guys instead. I took Kyren Williams instead. It's just not something I felt great about in draft season, and I don't feel great about it now. I regret the 2 out of 13 redraft shares that I have. But I think you're starting him. And then this is like that meme where the girl's playing with the kid and the other kid's in the corner drowning. It's like Devonta Smith is the kid who just, dude, if we're worried about AJ Brown, like if we're concerned about AJ Brown, Devonta Smith is in the bottom of the ocean as far as we're concerned for fantasy value. I know he has traditionally always been like a wide receiver 18 to 22. That's usually I believe that's where he's finished his entire fantasy career. But I have no idea how you could even flex him and feel good about it. I understand on some rosters you're going to have to. You took him in the 5th round. It's not something I'm looking to do. And then even Goddard with his weird little checkdowns or whatever, there's so many other viable tight ends this week. I'm just looking elsewhere. That's all it is. I dropped Goddard for Jawan Johnson. Luckily, I feel great about that now. I didn't even have to pay any fab for him. Super relieved. But yeah, I hate to fade 2 players that I think are pretty like Devonta Smith. I love. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. And then Goddard's a damn good football player, man. It's just until we know what the Eagles' usage is going to look like, or until a team really pushes them, I don't know what we're going to see. I mean, the Kansas City was more of a neutral game script most of the time. So were the Cowboys, and obviously they're going to run there. What happens if they have to get in a little bit of a shootout? I don't know. Could the Rams do it? Certainly. They were 15 yards away from eliminating the Eagles from the playoffs last year. The Rams played the Eagles tighter than anyone in the whole NFL last season. That same Eagles that came in and absolutely destroyed the Chiefs, the Rams went toe-to-toe to in the snow down to the 15-yard line or whatever they were short of, So is this the game where we see the Eagles have to get in a shootout for the first time this year, and then we get an idea of what it looks like when they're, maybe in negative-ish game scripts? Maybe. But if not, like, I don't know, I'll let Ted weigh in or whatever. I would hit the full-blown panic button here. If we get another week of like 150 yards or less passing from Jalen, I am it's over, fellas. In my opinion, it's over for AJ Brown and Devonta Smith this year. They're going to get their numbers eventually, but it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be with spike weeks, and the rest of the weeks they're going to cost you your week in your roster.
Yeah, I think that you just said it right there, right? Like when they get you your points, it's going to be in spike weeks. I don't think there's, other than maybe like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I don't think there's a more talented wide receiver duo than AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. I just think that the Eagles don't have to pass. They just haven't had to pass. They're winning games anyways, right? Let's run the tush push 10 times. We'll see here though. I'm not going to panic on AJ Brown and Devontae Smith if Saquon goes for another 200 yards against the Rams and the Eagles just blow them out, right? Like you can run on the
Yeah.
Rams if that could easily be the game plan here.
Yeah.
And if it is, I'm not going to change my priors or anything. Like they're both great players. It's just the Eagles aren't throwing the ball. That being said, though, if the Rams keep it close, I think there's a chance here. Just be patient if you can. I have two AJ Brown rosters. I have 40% roster exposure to AJ Brown. It's been bad so far, but I'm holding tight, man. I just made a trade. I traded away Garrett Wilson. I was more willing to trade away Garrett Wilson than I was AJ Brown. So I still view him as an elite talent. I think this Eagles team they're too good. They're too athletic. I think to keep throwing for 100 yards a game. I think so.
My
The Eagles are the first team in like the Super Bowl era to start like 2-0 without throwing a passing touchdown. Insane.
my little brother rosters AJ Brown in Dynasty, and he texted me, this motherfucker looks like, oh sorry, you're gonna have to edit that. This dude looks like Harriet Tubman, and he doesn't catch passes anymore. And now every time I look at him, I see Harriet Tubman from those like silver dollars or whatever.
if
Anyway, yeah,
if Harriet
yeah,
Tubman took steroids and was like six
yeah,
foot four, sure.
yeah.
All right, next one we got the surprising 2-0 Indianapolis Colts going to Tennessee to play the Titans. The Colts have a 23 implied team total, and the Titans have a 19.5 implied team total. For the Colts, we're going to start Jonathan Taylor. We're going to start Michael Pittman here, and we're starting Tyler Warren, but we're going to be watching the injury report because he was a DNP today on Wednesday. We record this show on Wednesdays. We're going to sit Josh Downs, and then we're going to tricky decision Indiana Jones, aka Danny Dimes. And then for the Titans, we're going to start Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley. We're going to sit Cam Ward, and we're going to tricky decision Elik Mayor. So let's start with the Titans first. Their offense just hasn't looked great the first 2 weeks. They've had a couple rough matchups against the Rams and against the Broncos. This is not easy defenses to go up against. This is, in my opinion, the most gettable defense they've played, but they just don't have that many guys out there. Cam, I'm treating Cam. I like Cam. I think Cam's a good player. I think Cam's going to be a franchise quarterback for the Titans. But until he shows you like a 20 plus point like fantasy league, I would leave him on your bench until further notice. You might be forced to start him in like super flex or whatever. If you are, I'd be cautiously optimistic, but I'm not chomping at the bit to get him in my lineup. Tony Pollard, it's looked bad the first couple weeks. He's getting the usage, but he just hasn't really been doing very much with it. Whether or not you're going to say that's because he's just not a very good player, or you're going to say because the Titans just don't have that many dogs. I don't know. I don't feel confident enough to make a call on that. But I mean, I would expect 20 plus touches here in what should be a plus matchup. Start him. Then Calvin Ridley, been a rough start to the year, but let's be patient here, fellas. Let's be patient here. This Colts like secondary is a bunch of 49ers castoffs. You got the ghost of Mooney Ward. You got Sam Womack back there. They're not that great. I think he's going to come around. Calvin Ridley is going to be a player that you're going to want to flex pretty regularly. I think don't shy away from it. I know it's tough, but stay the course. Stay the course on that one. And then Io Mayor, right? He had the really nice touchdown last week. He's a pretty nice player. He hasn't really gotten a bunch of volume, but from the volume he has gotten, he's looked pretty good. I think this is more of like a DFS or like if you're like a two flex league, like I'd take a stab at it maybe, but again, like he's not like a smash start or anything, but we're just throwing him up there as a name to watch. And then for the Colts, man, what a difference! What a difference this offense has made. I feel like how many? I feel like we used to talk about Shane Steichen all the time on this show. I used to constantly just glaze Shane Steichen week after week after week, and then like, it got bad for them. We stopped talking about it, but I feel like all he needs is like a quarterback that's like an adult and going to be able to not like burn the house down, and the great play calling will show itself. They have great offensive skill players. Like, I think it's good. I think this Colts team has a really good chance to win the AFC South here. Even though this Titans defense is pretty good, we're not sitting Jonathan Taylor under any circumstances. I think he's probably not probably. I think he's almost certainly a top 10 running back less for the rest of the season. Health if he stays healthy. Michael Pittman, we like the matchup here. X receivers, or like I guess the wide receiver one for teams, have kind of been tearing up the Titans here. I know L'Jarius Sneed hasn't been getting out there very much. Like, he's been on a limited snap count. I don't even know if he's an elite corner anymore. It looks like Pittman, at least to me, is the clear wide receiver one in Indy. Last week he drew the Surtain matchup, which you never want to draw. The Titans much more easy, I guess. So we're starting him, and then Tyler Warren, man. I think he's a top 5 tight end rest of season. This is just if he's healthy or not. If he goes, I'd feel fine starting him here. He's going to be a piece of this offense going forward. Then Jones, I mean, he's been, I think, what is he, like the fantasy quarterback 2 on the season? Yeah, fantasy quarterback 2. Just awesome. This Titans defense, they're not slouches, but I mean, if you picked up Jones on waivers, if you're like a Burrow roster that lost a guy, if you're a, I don't know, if you're a Brock Purdy roster and have Danny Dimes just sitting on your bench, like if you're making decisions like, do I start CJ Stroud this week or Trevor Lawrence? I'd like Daniel Jones more than those guys. To
Yeah.
me, he's like low end quarterback 1. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the only note, because I think Ted was as well, high on Ridley coming into the year. This is the last week that he will be listed as a starter if he does not start delivering. He's been open a bunch. He's dropped a bunch of balls. I think he gets it together here. He's kind of had drop problems in the past, but I still think he's their best receiver. I still think he's going to be their one. But who knows, man? Maybe him and Io Mayor switch at some point. But for now, yeah, he's the one. And then just Jones. Jones has been great for most of this year. I think he's, if they keep it up, he's going to be fine. But this just isn't a matchup I personally would want to attack unless I had to. Okay, next game is going to be the Jets at the Bucks. Kind of an important game. Like, dude, the Bucks might start out 3-0 here and take a pretty good hold on the division. That's like, I think it's a really important game for them. They're going in missing 3 linemen. But the Jets with an implied team total at 19, going to the Buccaneers with an implied team total at 25.5. For the Jets, you're going to see this most of the year, except when Fields is back. Fields will be a start, but Hall and Wilson. I don't know if this is going to be your best Breece Hall week of the season. He's coming off a down week last week. He's going to have Tyrod Taylor. You're hoping for the dump-offs to get you there, but there is not going to be a huge amount of touchdown upside to be had here this week. Same thing with Wilson, but I think, Tyrod Taylor's a competent backup, and I think you have to start these two guys for most rosters. But there are certainly some where you might have a better guy to start. Like if I had George Pickens or Garrett Wilson, I would probably be starting George Pickens this week. Trying to think of like what realistic options for the back end. I would prefer to start Ridley to Wilson this week. If Egbuka went, I would start him over Wilson this week. So, he's sort of in that range, right? The back end wide receiver 2 range. And then for the Buccaneers, you have Baker, Evans, Egbuka, Bucky as starts. And your sort of tricky decision real quick before I get to the starters is going to be Rashad White. White looked pretty good last week, man. He got good run. He had a higher yards per carry than Bucky. He was getting receptions out of the backfield. He looks like he's back and fully healthy. Even took a shot to the back and came back in the game to score a touchdown at the end. To me, this is more if you are a 0 or hero RB roster and you need someone for your RB2 slot and you're sitting there combing through waivers every week, this was a pretty popular ad. I saw him go in most of our leagues. I think that's a perfectly reasonable guy to plug in there. The game script should be really friendly for him. The O-line is banged up, right? So maybe they opt to do some dump offs to Rashad instead of Bucky running the ball up the middle as much. I just think there's going to be enough opportunity there that he's a low end, RB4, high end RB3 maybe as a sort of upside this week. And on a lot of 0 and hero RB rosters, that may be what you need. For the Buccaneers, if Egbuka doesn't go, I may look at other options besides Baker. I mean, he's just been so good, dude. In terms of where he ranks in the NFL in passing yards and touchdowns since coming to the Buccaneers, like I find him to be a really hard player to sit. Ted was saying he has a Drake May versus Baker Mayfield roster. He's rolling Drake May. I think that's right. I think he's right about in that range. He's more of a low-end one if Egbuka sits. If they both go, though, I mean, I don't see how you can sit Baker with his body of work at this point, with what he's doing for you week in and week out. I have a really hard time benching that. Mike Evans has gotten tremendous usage this year. He's looked good. He just drew 2 really brutal corner matchups to start his season. Like, that just is what it is, man. I am still super high. I'm actually trying to buy Mike Evans right now. And look, if Godwin comes back, if you're concerned at all that Godwin's going to come back and eat into the slot work or whatever, and maybe take away some work from Buka, their work is not going to go anywhere. Is going to be Mike Evans as the X receiver on the outside. His work is rock solid, locked in for the rest of the year. Excellent buy right now and an excellent start this week, even with the Sauce Gardner matchup. I know that's another tough one, but I don't view Sauce quite in the same. I don't know. I don't think he's been the player he used to be, especially since they started calling all those DPIs on him, especially not for someone like Mike Evans, and especially dude, if Igbuka's out, oh my God, make sure he's in your lineup. I've seen some rosters where he's like the wide receiver 3, and sometimes he's getting switched out. Don't do that. If Igbuka goes, I think you have to start him on most rosters. I don't know. You did a tremendous job drafting if you have the option to sit Igbuka, which I do, by the way. I'm actually I'm rolling Chase Brown. I was going to do Chase Brown or Kenneth Walker or Igbuka. I could start 2 of those 3, and I'm going to roll Chase Brown and Kenneth Walker over Igbuka this week, even if he does go. And then Bucky. Bucky's been getting tremendous high-end RB1 usage. I know it hasn't paid off in full yet, but it's coming. He's down 3 alignment. Just be patient. You're still starting him. You're never, ever sitting Bucky. But I promise some 20 to 25 point weeks are coming. I don't think it's going to be this week. Good defense, slow, methodical pace, low point total. Actually, a high point total for the game. I think the under is going to hit here. So, yeah, I don't know if this is the week you're going to get your big Bucky payout, but it is coming. Tristan Wirfs is coming back. The other 2 guys are coming back. This team is going to be just balls to the wall. It's going to be an incredible second half of the season. You're just going to take some bumps and bruises early on.
Yeah, I think that I have Baker on a couple rosters in fantasy this year. I think that so far he's been a better NFL player than he has been a fantasy asset, just because he's so clutch, man. Like the Bucks, like they're missing linemen. They may be struggling during a game. Last drive, like I don't know if there's another quarterback other than maybe like Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar or something that I'd be more comfortable in a 2-minute drive than Baker in, which is crazy. I love the career like trajectory, I guess comeback that he's had, right? I am worried though if Igbuka doesn't go. I don't think I think Evans might have fallen off a little bit, to be honest with you. I'll disagree with you a little bit there, and I don't think Sauce is the player he once was, but I don't think Evans is either. I think this might be like a weird one if Igbuka can't go. The Bucks, like at least from what I've noticed from them, like their offense is drastically different when they have their weapons out wide versus when they don't, right? If they don't, if Igbuka doesn't go, I might even look at K Dotton as maybe a tricky decision because the ball's got to go somewhere, right? Yeah, that's really it. I think that the Bucks should be fine here. If Igbuka goes, I think it'll be good.
At 44.5, that feels like a nice, comfortable under to me.
If Igbuka goes, I think the Bucks might blow him out, right? But if he doesn't go, then I think the Jets probably cover. It's really weird. Like I don't know. It more so than any other team. I think the Bucks are super reliant on like who their pass catchers are. I don't have any worries about Bucky though, man. Like him stepping into the role he has, he's really taken a step forward, even though the results haven't been there yet. Like you can super tell. He's a savage. All right, next we got the Jake Browning Bowl. We got Jake Browning and the Bengals going to Minnesota to play Carson Wentz and the Vikings, just like we drew it up. The Bengals have an implied team total of 19.25 points, and the Vikings have an implied team total of 22.25 points. For the Bengals, we're starting Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. That's not easy to say. Then we're going to tricky decision Jake Browning and T. Higgins. Then for the Vikings, we're going to start Justin Jefferson, Jordan Mason. We're going to tricky decision TJ Hawkinson, and we're going to sit the rest. So we'll start with the Vikings first. I get that the quarterback position has not been good enough this year so far, other than one quarter for the Vikings. That being said, though, JJ has still got you home. Even with that terrible game JJ McCarthy had last week, Jefferson still had 80 yards on 3 grabs. He just needs an adult. He needs like a serviceable NFL quarterback to deliver him the ball. I'm not sure if Carson Wentz is that at this point in his career, but we're still not sitting him. I'm not freaking out about this player yet, but if it gets really bad, maybe we can revisit the conversation. To me, Jordan Mason is a smash here with Aaron Jones hitting IR. Kevin O'Connell came out today and said that we feel extremely comfortable with Jordan Mason in a bell cow role. This is an RB1 this week for me against a Bengals defense that isn't very good. And then we're going to tricky decision Hawkinson just because the the extra pieces of the Vikings haven't been doing well with the bad quarterback play, and Hawkinson hasn't looked great either. We get that the draft capital, like you probably took him in the 6th, 7th round, something like that. So it's tough to sit a tight end that you took that high. And this should be a good matchup. So we'll see. He's on thin ice though for me. As for the Bengals, I know that this is people are just fantasy managers, I guess, are panicking about both of these teams. I'm here to tell you guys, I think Jake Browning's okay. I think he'll be able to keep this thing afloat for the Bengals because the skill position players are just too good, right? So we're gonna start Jamar Chase here. I think he's a wide receiver one this week. He's still within my top 3 wide receivers for fantasy on the year. With Jake Browning last week, I think he went for like 130 yards or something. He should be good here. Same with Chase Brown. I think that with no Joe Burrow, right, they're probably going to have to lean on him a little bit more. I think there will be more design stuff for Chase Brown. The volume has been there and the efficiency hasn't so far, but stay the course with this player. He'll be fine. Then we're gonna tricky decision Jake Browning, like we said. Like this is a tough matchup against the Vikings with Brian Flores and his blitz happy defense. But Browning in the games he started and finished, he's pacing for 4,500 yards and 26 touchdowns on a 17 game pace. So man, I think there's going to be value here if you're super flex in a super flex league and you need a quarterback. I would have been picking at waivers on him this week. I actually put in a waiver bid for him for like $40 a fab in a super flex league. And then T. Higgins, I feel like if anyone's going to suffer from Joe Burrow being out, it's going to be T. It's just, you know, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were kind of drafted within like, the top 15 wide receivers. It's very difficult for a backup in the NFL to sustain top 15 fantasy production for 2 guys. I think Jamar Chase is undeniable, and it may just be T. Higgins that suffers, but we'll see. I'm still not panicked about him too much. I have a roster with Ricky Pearsall and Xavier Worthy on the bench. I'm still rolling T. Higgins this week just because I don't know what the deal with Worthy is yet. If you have a better option, right, you can roll him instead. Like, I don't know. I feel fine about it. I think that managers may feel better about their Bengals bags after this one. What do you think, man? Did I miss anything here?
No, I mean I'm starting Pittman over Higgins in one league. I just prefer, I prefer to give it a week and see what it looks like. Okay, Texans at the Jaguars. Texans 22-point implied team total. Jaguars 24.5 implied team total. Getting the hook at home. For the Texans, you're starting Chubb and Nico in this one. Nico got really promising red zone usage last week. I saw some people saying like he's a smash go by kind of guy, putting him in the same category as like a London or a BTJ. I'm a huge Nico Collins guy. I really am. Like I've rostered him every single year except for this year since he was drafted and came into the NFL. I'm really freaked out by how bad that line looks. They do not look like they're capable of giving CJ the time for Nico's routes to develop downfield or to even buy him enough space to scramble and hit Nico on those crazy scrambles he does. I'm really kind of pretty freaked out with Nico so far this year, but this is a soft matchup. Should be an offensive friendly game. It's outdoors, but it's in nice weather. Like I think it's a good start for Nico, and I wonder if we see his first ceiling week this week. This is definitely the one to do it in. And then Chubb, I think they let Chubb score at the end of the game, right? That's been sort of the talking point from the Tampa Bay game. I think it's correct, but like the Jaguars are really soft, man. They're really soft on defense. They don't have a healthy defense. It should be a neutral game script for most of the game. I think you can start Chubb this week. How long does that go on? I don't know. Stroud, perfectly reasonable, like QB2 flyer. There's a lot of guys I would rather start over Stroud. He's toward the lower end of the QB2 strata this week, but he's in there. Like it's fine. It's a soft defense. They're gonna throw it a lot. I think he had 14.9 last week or something. So it's just low end QB2 production. For the Jags, the only guy we are starting confidently this week is ETN. The Texans have an incredibly good defense, dude. And there's sort of a nuance point here, 2 nuance points to make out of it. But ETN, locked and loaded, back end RB1 or high end RB2. Fantastic start this week. Get him in all your lineups. You cannot leave ETN on the bench until further notice. He's leading the NFL in rush yards over expectation. Like he just looks excellent to me. Excellent. Who knows where this goes by the end of the year, but he is an absolute smash until otherwise, especially against a run funnel D. But here's the interesting point, right? I am a BTJ investor, both in best ball and in redraft. I have pretty heavy BTJ bags. I know compilations are going around online of him looking scared to get hit, but he's been getting incredible wide receiver one usage. The issue here, he's going to draw the Stingley shadow, almost certainly. He's going to draw the Stingley shadow, and Stingley is one of the best shadow corners in the NFL, one of the absolute best. And I just wonder if the word is out that this guy's flinching about getting hit. Dude, it's like rare when you're watching the NFL, when you're watching football, it's pretty rare that you look and go, oh my God, there's like a different level of physicality, even as far as NFL physicality goes. The Texans defense is a different level of physicality, even as far as NFL physicality goes. Dude, you're hearing like pads clanking, like guys are getting absolutely cracked. Rachaad White's diving for a fumble and rolling around on the ground, holding onto his back. Like, dude, the Texans are violent. So if you're telling me the word is out that the wide receiver one on the Jaguars, who their entire offense is built around in the passing game, is freaking out about getting hit a little bit, they are going to try to knock his freaking block off in this game, right? And I just wonder. I wonder, do we see them take a 15-yard over the middle shot just to really lay into him? I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. On the flip side, one, you drafted him first round. You're almost not sitting him at all. We put him as the tricky decision because it's a conversation that needs to be had. On the flip side, Cohen is saying that they know the mission. Cohen says his entire goal is to get this thing right, to get it fixed between Trevor and BTJ. Trevor's saying that too. I think you're going to see some design stuff to get the ball in his hands in space this week. There's almost no one better at designing those plays than Cohen in the entire NFL. Like I trust Cohen and I trust Trevor enough to get it right with a player that is Brian Thomas Jr.'s caliber. I don't know if this will be the week. I've been sending out offers pretty aggressively for him, and I'm going to continue to do that if he has another down week. And again, you guys probably aren't sitting him but be aware. This may be one more down week for him. Your sits are going to be Strange and Lawrence. I have no interest in starting Lawrence, who barely ever goes over 20 points in his career. I think he's only had 3 or 4 games in his entire starting NFL career where he's gone over 20 QB points, which is wild. He just does not score a lot of fantasy points. He's a low-end QB2, high-end QB3. Strange, there was some hubbub about him coming into the year. He just doesn't get the usage, man. It's not enough. He's a good player, good football player, bad fantasy asset. And then Travis Hunter, last one. So last week, the Jags had some injuries in the secondary. We saw him come in, get that pass interference call that really swung the game. I think it was a terrible call. I don't think he actually pass interfered. I don't think they should have made that call, but they did. Really swung the game, really affected the game. But the point was his offensive snaps plummeted when they needed him on defense. Do they need him on defense again this week? I'm not sure. Maybe. And then even when he's on offense, he's actually rated. I should have looked this up on Datarama, but you guys should go follow Datarama on Twitter. Excellent page. He's like pretty bad in terms of generating separation or route win rate. He's like not, some people would have said that he was like a Malik Neighbors level prospect or a Brian Thomas Jr. level prospect coming in the league. I know some scouts, I know for a fact, because I read their scouting report, some scouts had him as that caliber guy. I have not seen that on tape. And I thought, by the way, he would be if he played purely receiver. I thought he would be like an excellent, I was thinking like a more athletic Chris Godwin kind of production this year. He's not catching up to the speed of the NFL game correctly. Like he's not generating separation. And then his routes are so underdeveloped, as you would expect from someone who really only played offense on game days in college. He's just not up to speed yet. So he's not a startable fantasy asset. He should be on your bench until further notice. Absolutely don't drop him. If you can get him thrown in a trade for free as like a little extra piece, I would do that. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time for him to acclimate to the NFL game. And he just very clearly is not there yet.
I guess my only thing on this game, and this is more of a question for you, Yanni, who would you prefer rest of season, Brian Thomas Jr. or Nico Collins?
Brian Thomas.
Yeah, me too, and it's not close. I'm freaking out about this Texans thing, but this Jaguars defense is so bad, I prefer Nico this week. But as a whole, I would be buying Brian Thomas and selling Nico Collins.
Dude, I go through like mental gymnastics. I can't believe that I can't bring myself to send an offer of Zay Flowers plus a piece for Nico Collins. I can't believe my whole philosophy with trading, my thing. It's like I'll sell high, I'll give 2 to get 1, and I'll go buy low on these premium assets. I did it last year. I got 6 different shares of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mike Evans last year, right before the playoffs. I was happy to do it. I can't bring myself to send that offer. That's an absolutely astounding statement. Like it's Pittman or Keon plus Flowers for Nico Collins, and I won't hit send on that.
All right, next one. We got the Saints going into Seattle to play the Seahawks. The Saints have an implied team total of 17 points, and the Seahawks have an implied team total of 24.5 points. For the Saints, we're going to start Alvin Kamara, we're going to start Chris Olave, and we're going to start Jawan Johnson. Then we're sitting Rashid Shaheed and Spencer Rattler. Then for the Seahawks, we're going to start JSN. We're going to start Kenneth Walker the third. I think he's an RB1 this week if Sharps is out, but I'm going to opine on that a little bit here in a second. We're going to sit Sam Darnold, and we're going to tricky decision Zach Charbonnet. So let's start here with the Seahawks, right? I think that JSN, like this guy's a target monster. He just hasn't gotten in the end zone yet. I think that he's probably a wide receiver one rest of the year. I think the bigger conversation about the Seahawks team is like, what is happening with this running back room, right? Because week one, Charbonnet looked way better than Ken Walker. Ken Walker, I think he had like 12 carries for like 20 yards or something. Then last week, it was another split in the backfield. Charbonnet goes for like 12 carries, 10 yards. Charbonnet or Ken Walker goes over 100, right? So now all the guys who are the Ken Walker truthers coming into the year are kind of saying he's back. It's Ken Walker RB1 season. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. This is a backfield split at best. At best, it's a backfield split. I don't think anything has really changed though, right? Kenneth Walker, in my opinion, is the more explosive player. If you're telling me that Charbonnet and Ken Walker are both getting 10 carries in a game, I would prefer to start Ken Walker because he has a better chance of like breaking one off, right? That being said, though, to me, like rest of season and a neutral game, no injuries, I think they're both tricky decisions. I would be selling Ken Walker now if you can sell him to one of those believers. But that being said, if either of these guys go out, I think that all of a sudden you have a startable fantasy asset. Right now, Charbonnet did not practice. We're recording this on Wednesday, so all we have is the information that he DMP'd. If Charbonnet sits out, Ken Walker is going to by default get full run here, and I like him as an RB1. But just that's where I personally stand with the Seahawks thing. Yanni might think differently. I'll let him talk about it if he wants to. Same thing with Charbonnet, right? Like if he goes, then tricky decision. Don't really love either of them. We're sitting Sam Darnold just because, like, he hasn't been getting the touchdowns really. I think the Seahawks would be fine to run the ball here against a soft Saints defense. I think that you can kind of attack the Saints in any way you want to, and I don't see it being a Sam Darnold air this thing out type of game. On the Saints side, I think this is a more functional offense than I gave them credit for. Spencer Rattler, at a minimum, like I don't think he's like a career starter or anything, but he's a spot startable guy, and he had a pretty good week last week against the Niners. We're not starting him here. We're not starting Rashid Shaheed because we're not going crazy with this. This is a good defense, but your like primary guys, right? There's talented guys on this offense, and I think that you can start like bringing them off your bench and being a little bit more confident in them. Alvin Kamara probably wasn't on your bench in the first place unless you have a really deep draft, but I like him here. I think he'll be fine. He's more of an RB2 to me, but like at least he's startable. I thought he might have been a bust coming into the year. I think I got that wrong. Same with Chris Olave. Again, great player. It's just kind of his situation and injury history has been bad. But man, if Spencer Rattler can get him the ball, I think he'll be fine. I think he had like 60, 70 yards or something last week. He's more of a flex play to me than a wide receiver too, but that's fine. And then Jawan Johnson, he's averaging like 10 targets a game as a tight end. And he got broken off. He got paid too. He's going to be a focal point in this offense. He acts as like the safety blanket for Spencer Rattler. I think that the Saints are probably trailing in this game and have to throw. I mean, I think 8, 9 targets is totally within the range of outcomes for him. Totally tight end oneable. He's not a high end one or anything, but I think that he probably needs to be in starting lineups in all 12 team leagues. What do you think, Yanni? Did I miss anything?
Oh, dude, Juwan Johnson is, oh, God, that was such a great feeling. I had a Dallas Goedert Loveland roster, and I just, that was it. It was over once I got Johnson. No, I mean, I think Kenneth Walker, I believe personally that he will be like a top 15 running back moving forward, but that's health dependent. Like, dude, there's at any minute he could get a high ankle or something, and then he's just done. It's just so freaky rostering Kenneth Walker. And my problem with whether he's a buy or a seller, what you do rest of the year is like, one, neither one of them I think is a smash unless the other one's out. Unless Kenneth Walker really looks that much better per touch moving forward, who knows? We don't know. But two, he went anywhere from 30 to 40 in almost every one of my drafts. Every single one of them. The share that I got of him was at like 46, 47. He slid a little bit, so I was able to get one. But 30 to 40, and now that he had an RB 1 week, people have now just priced him as a top 35 fantasy asset. So like I went to the Kenneth Walker owner, I asked him what he would want for him. I needed running back on a roster, and he wanted AJ Brown. That's it. I want AJ Brown for Kenneth Walker. And maybe that's a my problem for your problem trade. Maybe that'll be interesting when we look back on this in the end of the year. I don't know. But like if people are going to price him as a top 15 running back when you're taking on tremendous risk in both injury and usage and role and the team's decisions, I'm just not doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a scenario where he's underpriced right now, and he's a great asset moving forward if you can get your hands on him this week. But I don't think anyone's going to sell him at no one's going to sell him at a price that properly prices in the risk. You know,
I think that this Ken Walker like prognostication in the offseason is going to be like on the Mount Rushmore of the 2025 fantasy season is like one of the worst calls by the experts, right? Like it's probably like, to me, it's like Trevion Henderson 4th round, like Kenneth Walker at the 3-4 turn. Then like, I don't know, maybe AJ Brown 2nd round. Like all of those picks are looking really bad right now. But we'll see. There's a contingent of believers, no doubt.
Broncos going to the Chargers, really important game for the division, and really important too. The Chargers have a chance to start out 3-0 while the Chiefs are 0-2, and the Broncos would be 1-2. That is a stranglehold on the division. And with a win over the Raiders, if they do get it to 2-1, if not, like they can have a 2-game lead on their entire division here. I think this is a massive game for Harbaugh, for the Chargers, for Herbert, for this new era of football he's trying to kick off where he can maybe host a playoff game or two. I think these are really, really high stakes here, really high stakes for a game that's early in the season. And with that, the Broncos are 2.5-point underdogs going to LA to face the Chargers. 24-point implied team total for the Chargers, 21.5 for the Broncos. The Broncos are sort of interesting. I think Nix has actually been a really good fantasy asset, man. Like I didn't like taking him. I don't like taking. For me, it's hero or zero if I'm going quarterback, right? I'll take a Lamar, I'll take a Josh Allen in the third, I'll take a Jalen Hurts in the fourth or a Jaden in the fourth. But if I'm not doing that, I'm going to wait all the way to the 9th or 10th or even later rounds to get a quarterback. So I was not a fan of Bo Nix this year. I don't agree with taking those guys in the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 range, 8 range, which Bo Nix was. But he's been like good, man. You know, he's been producing. It looks like his wide receiver core is coming along. Maybe we have a Franklin breakout here. We'll keep an eye on that. Even without Ingram, he's looked good. The running backs look good. I just think it's a really healthy offensive ecosystem that you can plug and play Nix as a mid-range quarterback one every week. Great. In this game, you can do that again. It's a tough defense, but you can certainly do that. He is a start for us. And then we're still going to have Sutton as a start here. I'm not on the whole. I've seen some people saying I knew Sutton was the worst, but you picked a dead zone wide receiver was what people were saying. He was technically, no, it was due to injury, but he was technically a wide receiver 1 last year in point totals, not in points per game. He was wide receiver 24. But like Sutton's a damn good football player, man. They just paid him a big extension. I think it was 23 or 24 million a year. He is their wide receiver 1. Just Franklin's coming along, and Franklin got him for a game, and that's going to happen sometimes. He has certainly, though, not been surpassed. He's not been supplanted. And I saw the phrase a dead zone wide receiver on Twitter. He is not a dead zone wide receiver. If your teammates think that, trade for him. Start him this week. We're going to sit Harvey and Ingram. Ingram's being weird with his injury. It looks like he's going to go. Or did he go last week after his thigh bruise?
Yeah, he went last week. Only one.
He went last week. It didn't look good. Didn't look good with 1 target. I don't think he's startable. If you can get one of those guys we've been sort of waxing poetically about, if you can get a Fannin Jr., a Jawan Johnson, I would even rather roster a Dallas Goedert, Kincaid, Ferguson over Ingram. It's just too weird, man. I don't want to wait for it to come around. This isn't like Loveland where if he hits, you might get a rookie or Sam Laporta. I don't think there's upside there, and he's going to come out half the time for Troutman on blocking plays anyway. Harvey. Love the prospect, was obsessed with the prospect, was drafting him all year in mock drafts and sending it to Ted and going, Harvey's a 5th-round pick. They got Dobbins. I still said I think I want him in the 5th round. I was incorrect for now. He's just not getting the usage. And then you have that Bidet, the other guy, who's cutting in with like 10 to 15 snaps per game. Until he goes away completely, I certainly don't want to look at Harvey. And until Harvey overtakes some of Dobbins' work, I don't want to look at him. Dobbins is a running back too until further notice. He's a sort of tricky decision this week just because the Chargers defense is really stingy all around. They've been hard, man. It has been hard to run against them. You saw Genty out there last night just getting shellacked, or last week. just getting shellacked against them. Like, I don't know if I want to start Dobbins here. I would be looking to other options. If you have Jaquaski Merritt going against Las Vegas, do it. Jordan Mason, not even close. Get Jordan Mason in there. Nick Chubb against the Jaguars. I would prefer Nick Chubb against the Jaguars to Dobbins against the Chargers. And then Troy Franklin, you probably just dropped a grip on him in FAB. Not a grip, but like 8 to 15% was what I saw in most leagues. 8 to 15, maybe some got him at 5%, maybe. I think he's a fine wide receiver 5 with upside if you want to hold him and see what happens, but I would not start him this week. It's just not an attackable. You don't want to attack I know there's a healthy game total here, and it's probably going to be a good game offensively. I just don't know when I have other options if I'm going to try to attack this Chargers matchup. It's just not. Minter's a beast, dude, a beast. He's from the McDonald's scheme system. He's actually in McDonald's coaching tree from defense. That was the guy that when Jim called John and said, I need one of your best guys to run my defense, John and McDaniel, the Seahawks coach, Mike McDaniel.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel. I get him confused. Mike McDaniel. They sent him over to Harbaugh to be his guy, and they won a college championship together. I take this Chargers defense extremely seriously. Extremely. Still start Sutton. Don't start Franklin. For the Chargers, Herbert has looked so goddamn good, man. You cannot sit Herbert at this point. He's not. If you took him on those QB2 rosters, if you were lucky enough to take advantage of your idiot league mates and you got him at the 12-13 turn in the most important league to me and Ted, good for you. You scored. He looks tremendous, dude. I'm never, under no circumstances am I sitting Justin Herbert going forward, really, unless something seriously changes. It'll be sort of interesting this week with something we're about to discuss. It kills me to say this. I had Hampton as my RB12 coming into the year. I wanted him over Kyron. I took him over James Cook, which will haunt me forever, but I did it twice. I thought it was going to be a run-first team. I thought Hampton was one of the best. Hampton profiled a lot like Jonathan Taylor to me. It just hasn't looked good, dude. He hasn't looked good with the volume he's gotten. He was seeing 80, 70% snap shares, and he didn't capitalize on multiple goal line stand plays where he couldn't get in the end zone, and then he goes and fumbles in a crucial moment against a division rival, at which point Najee took the rest of the work moving forward. And Najee looked good enough. We'll see what happens this week. I did speculatively add Najee in a bunch of leagues due to that concern. I'm not interested in starting either one. I am starting Bill. I am starting Jaquaski Merritt over Omarion Hampton this week. What is one other decision I'm making starting Hampton over? I mean, this one was easy, but I had Hampton in my RB2 and I was flexing ETN, and I'm now sliding like a Devontae Adams, a Terry McLaurin, a George Pickens, all of those guys I'm rolling over Hampton. So I want to sit him for a little while, see what's going on. I know this defense was torn up pretty good by Jonathan Taylor. Maybe that happens here and we all feel better, but until further notice, he's not startable. He's not a startable fantasy asset. It kills me to say. I blew it, man. I was taking him at the 2-3 turn. I took him at the 2-3 turn twice. Just is what it is, man. Take your L's. We're going to sit QJ because the Surtain matchup, QJ plays the X a lot. I don't want any part of that. And then Ladd and Keenan are tricky decisions. This one's a little weird. So Ladd pulled up with a DNP, not previously listed bicep injury in practice today. And some people were wondering, like, was that an acute, like, serious injury? Because that's a weird one for a receiver to have. And it's weird for him to have had it and for it to not be noticeable on Sunday. Is this something that happened in between? We don't know. We have no information on it. But it's not good to have a random go from no injury to a DNP on a Wednesday with an obscure injury and an obscure part of a body for a receiver. It's just not great. If Ladd goes, I think you have to start him. I think Keenan's a perfectly reasonable, like, I would expect lower end numbers out of Keenan. I would rather avoid this matchup from the pass catching perspective on both sides. But like, Keenan's been so good, like, come on, if you want to throw him in your flex, that's perfectly fine. If Ladd doesn't go, I think you then have to start Keenan this week because he's going to get all the slot work and avoid the Surtain lockdown.
Yeah, man. Right now the Chargers are throwing. They're passing the most in neutral game scripts more than any other team, right? They're the most pass happy team, which is crazy to see from a Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh offense. I think that it's on the board. This Broncos defense got oversold a little bit. They burned me last week. They busted my parlay in the gambling show. I think there's going to be success for the Chargers here. I don't think it's QJ because of the Surtain thing. I think Surtain follows QJ. I really do think either Ladd or Keenan are going to be an excellent start this week. It's just a matter of which one it is. Yeah. And then for the backfield, right? Like, Hampton had a really good opportunity. I know a lot of people are saying that, like, this is his backfield now. They're not looking back. Listen, man, they paid Najee a pretty good amount. I think Hampton might have ruined his chance, and it's back to 50-50. The good news, though, if you are a Hampton owner, is Najee is not good at football and will always give the other back a chance to be looked at, right? So I think Hampton eventually will take over this backfield again. It's just a matter of him being ready when the opportunity arises. All right, next we got this is a big game for a Niners fan here. We got the Arizona Cardinals coming into Santa Clara to play the Niners. The Cardinals have an implied team total of 21 points, and the 49ers have an implied team total of 23.5 points. For the Cardinals, we're going to start Kyler Murray here. We're going to start Trey McBride, and we're going to start Marvin Harrison Jr. We're going to tricky decision James Conner. More on that in a minute because I feel like his PR is better than Marvin Harrison's at this point in time. And then we're going to sit Trey Benson. Then for the Niners, we're going to start Christian McCaffrey. We're starting Ricky Pearsall, aka Slick Rick, and we're going to start Juwan Jennings. So let's go to the Cardinals first because I kind of led into this a little bit, right? So Kyler Murray, I don't think he's been very good this year at all. But rushing upside is king in fantasy, and the Niners have a difficult time with mobile quarterbacks. So we're going to start him here. This is more a fantasy play than a real life play. This Niners defense has looked way better to me than last year's version. I think they're closer to the Super Bowl run Niners than they were the last year embarrassment 49ers defense, but I would not be shocked at all to see Kyler Murray at least rush one in, and a lot of times that'll get you home from a fantasy perspective. Trey McBride, no duh, easily top 3 tight end rest of the way. Then for Marvin Harrison, Kyler got up on the podium this week. He was asked a question about Marvin Harrison not getting work, and he goes, "Yeah, Marv knows. Sometimes he's going to get 8 targets, sometimes he's going to get 3. It's just whatever the game is, right?" So that's a yikes to hear as a fantasy manager. That being said, though, the Niners have been pretty good at defending the run. Kamara went for 99 against them last week, but there were a lot of great plays like Michael Williams was stopping guys behind the line. Nick Bosa's had a resurgent year. I think this is going to have to be more of a passing and Kyler Murray game if the Cardinals are going to keep pace, and I think they will. I think this is going to be a close one. So Marvin Harrison here, why not? Do you think they're going to line up Demo on him, Yanni? Like it feels like that's a size total mismatch, and they'll try and put like Ronaldo Green on him, but I don't know for sure.
I don't think they have Demo's shadow. Off the top of my head, like they've done it in the playoffs, but Stout takes slot corner now, and they kick Demo outside. And Demo, by the way, has been one of the best, highest rated corners in the league so far this year. But I don't recall because the first 2 weeks JSN was mostly covered by Stout because of the slot work.
Okay.
So I don't recall what they do there. No, but I mean, I don't think so. I think they play the sides. Yeah, actually, no, because they didn't move Charvarius with the other receivers. No.
All right. Well, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. at any rate to me is more of a wide receiver 2 than wide receiver 1
Yeah.
this week, and he would be a player that if he has a nice week here, I might try and move and get more pieces.
Yeah.
Then for the James Conner tricky decision, this is more so a snap share thing than anything else. Last week it was 60-40 with Trey Benson. Trey Benson is going to be a relevant member of this Cardinals offense, and I think the rush game for them is moving more to a timeshare. If it is, James Conner's not like an explosive player. He's pretty efficient, right? He's a nice player. He's usually live to fall in the end zone, but if you're telling me I'm getting 60% of the Arizona Cardinals backfield and that player is James Conner, he's an RB2 to flex to me. And I think Benson, the more work he gets, the more he becomes like that handcuff plus tier to me. He's getting close to Charbonnet in terms of like guys you want on your bench. As for the Niners, they were able to tread water last week with Mac Jones. It's still not a great defense, but I'm not expecting the level of success from Mac Jones in the passing game that we saw last week. CMC is a no-brainer. Like obviously, he is the entire offense at this point. Then Ricky and Juwan, it's just kind of like, what are we gonna do here? I'm of the opinion that I'm a little lower on Ricky until Brock gets back. I think they have a pretty good relationship going, and that's part of like what the Pearsall breakout is. So I like Juwan a little bit more in this one, but I think this is going to be a close game. I think the Niners are going to try and take advantage of a secondary that's not that great, and there will be value here. So we're going to start them both, but they're more like in the flex, on the flex radar to me for both guys. What do you think, Yanni? Did I miss anything?
No, I am pretty shocked that Marvin Harrison Jr. has finally gotten his horizontal breaking routes. I think it was Matt Harmon. Someone did a really interesting breakdown on Twitter of that this morning. because, the big thing was he needs his horizontal breaking routes because they have a higher percentage. He's like rated below league average on those. He's actually not getting himself open when he runs the horizontal breaking stuff. His game just does not mesh well with Kyler. I would certainly try to sell him if he has a big week anytime soon. Okay, Cowboys at Bears. You're going to be seeing this one with the Bears until further notice. They lost Jalen Johnson, man. This is a leaky secondary. This is a targetable matchup, and we will be targeting it all year with guys that are on the fence. The Cowboys, 24.5 implied team total, going to the Bears with a 26-point implied team total. I had to check that a few times. I was pretty surprised to see the Cowboys as the underdog here. But cool. Thank you. Makes our life easier on Fridays. For the Cowboys, we're starting everyone. Dak Prescott, incredible start this week. If you have a QB2 roster, get him in there. Pickens, if you have guys that you're on the fence about, if he's your wide receiver 3 or 4, get him in there. CeeDee Lamb, never a decision. Javonte Williams, actually one of the leaders in the NFL in forced missed tackles per attempt and yards over expectation rushing. I believe he's 4th right now in yards over expectation per rush. I was shocked. I was a Jaden Blue speculator coming into the year, and I've sort of given up on that. Javonte looks good enough, man. He may just be this year's Dobbins. But everyone, now moving forward until something drastically changes, which almost certainly will not be this year, you are going to start everyone who is matched up with the Bears, including this week. Get your Cowboys in your roster. For the Bears, I actually think Caleb is a smash start this week. I'm happy to start him. The Cowboys have been hemorrhaging passing yards as well, plus the negative game script. Like, you see the over-under, 50.5 points. He's at home. I think this is a great spot. I'm starting Caleb. I have a Brock Purdy roster where he went down, and I am now ripping Caleb over Jared Goff, who are my 2 rostered quarterbacks while Brock chills on the IR. I'm super comfy with the start this week. Romo Dunze, welcome to the list of top 10 in the NFL in separation per route run and route win rate. I think he was 13th, actually, in route win rate. Romo Dunze is currently averaging 20 half PPR points per game. Again, me and Ted are going to disagree on that a little bit. I think he's a top 15 wide receiver moving forward this year. Personally, maybe that's a little too bullish. I don't know. But certainly rip him this week against Dallas. And I would say, again, until something really changes, you have to keep him in your roster. You just have to. He's being used as their X. He looks like he's Caleb and Ben's preferred guy here. He was the guy who spent all summer warming up with Caleb as a rookie, running routes with him, and then they came into the league together. I feel really good about that. DJ Moore, though, I told you guys to go and trade for him week 1. I still think you should go and trade for him. I think there's plenty of room in Ben Johnson's scheme to have 2 competent pass catchers, especially with the tight ends floundering and Luther Burden not involved. I think DJ Moore is a perfectly fine start this week. More so to me as an upside flex wide receiver 3 kind of guy, less so as a wide receiver 2. But rip him. You're good to go. He's still getting design plays. He's still being used in sort of primary receiver-ish roles from time to time. He's getting runs out of the backfield, passes out of the backfield occasionally, some funky, Ben Johnson stuff. I think it's fine. I think he's a start. I don't know if he's like an amazing start that I'm thrilled with, but I think he's a perfectly reasonable start. We'll cover the tight ends first. Loveland and Kmet. Loveland cannot unseat Kmet in terms of snap share yet. I don't know if it's coming or not. I was really high on Loveland coming into the year. I guess I was stupid, right? I assumed you take the tight end 2 in draft rankings as the tight end 1. You take him top 10. You take him over 6 other positions of need. I thought that meant you were going to use him robustly. So my feeling was, this is his Sam Laporta in Chicago. That's what Ben Johnson wants to do. He made this big move. I was super high on it. I was willing to take Colston Loveland at the 9-10 turn. Took him there a couple times. And it's just been a disaster, man. He's not getting the reps. He's not getting the usage. He's not even getting the snaps. And I think he's looked pretty good when he's gotten them. That's why I don't understand what's going on. I don't know. Maybe it's a Caleb thing. It doesn't seem like it. But until further notice, you can't start either Loveland or Kmet. You just can't do it. Is he worth a speculative stash on your bench in a six-person bench league? I don't know. That's dicey to me. It really is. Yeah, I just don't know. It's a bummer. It's a bummer for how much I love Loveland as a player. It's also just weird. Why didn't you just take Tyler Warren as the tight end 1 overall? And if you loved Loveland that much, why don't you use him? I don't know. It's so bizarre to me. I can't figure it out. And there's too many factors going on. Don't F around with it. Just get it out of your lineup. Sort of tricky decisions. Swift is averaging around 4 yards a carry this year. He's getting fed like a bell cow. He hasn't been particularly efficient. He hasn't been particularly inefficient. This is sort of what we get with Swift from a fantasy perspective. He's just a guy plus. he's like a little bit, I don't want to say he's just a guy. He's like a little bit better. He's hung around too long. He's been on too many important teams, made too many runs with those teams to just be nothing. But I don't know. He's not nothing, but he's not something. I don't know what he is. He's just sort of a low end running back 2, running back 3 borderline guy. If he didn't get the touchdown last week, he'd be averaging like under 8 points per game and half PPR. Monangai looked good to me, but he only looked good in garbage time. Do we see Monangai hoard in on him a little bit? I'm not sure. And then the last thing, Dallas has played the run really, really tight this year. They've actually really come out and like laid the hat in the running game. Particularly, like Saquon. I thought they played Saquon extremely well last week. So, you're probably starting Swift. Where you took him in the 5th round, or if you traded Garrett Wilson for him, you're going to get Swift in your lineup. I don't know if I would be excited to do so, though.
Is the pessimist on this show. I have to throw in my 2 cents on this Bears thing. I know that a lot of people this offseason were saying Rome Odunze is the wide receiver 1. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Chicago this year. And it's looked good for the first 2 weeks. And I don't even dislike Rome Odunze as a player. He's a great player. Like, I think he's very good. But I feel like when we call Rome Odunze the clear-cut wide receiver 1, we're really disrespecting what DJ Moore is as a player. Listen, I think that it's very possible. I'm not saying it's likely, and I think that if you have like concrete opinions on what this Bears team in like who's going to get the targets over like 2 weeks of a sample size, you're just like, way out in front of where you should be. I think it's more likely than not that this is like a 1A, 1B. They're almost like the same in the offense situation. And I don't like Caleb as a player, at least for now. Like, I don't think Caleb is good enough. I think he'll be good enough this week against the Cowboys. He's playing a team that gave up 450 yards to Russell Wilson, right? Like, we're going to start him here. He's gotten you there in fantasy. I think he's a much worse player in real life than he is in fantasy. And I think it's possible that we could see going forward, like some weeks where DJ Moore has a big one and Rome Odunze has like a 5-point week, right? And then it could flip the next week. I think it's going to be hard to predict. That being said, though, like I feel like it's a function of the quarterback not being ready for the NFL yet. Caleb, like he's had over a season now and he's still like showing this weird stuff. I think he's closer to Trevor Lawrence than he is to Jaden Daniels, right? So it's just kind of tough. You got a lot of mouths to feed and a quarterback that's not super efficient in doing it. There will be value here though this week. And then Swift, I feel like I don't know. He's not a fantastic player or anything, right? But at least his role in the offense, I feel like, is pretty concrete. Managai, he looks like a decent RB2. I think he necessitates getting some work, but I feel fine with Swift. He's more like a flex to me than like a RB2, RB1, but it's going to be startable here. And then for the Cowboys, man, this is a smash spot for me. I think this Bears defense has a chance to be like a bottom 5 unit in the league. It could be like a couple of years ago when we told you to start all your guys against the Bears. It's looking a lot more like that this year, especially without Jalen Johnson. I think they miss, as much as they hated Matt Eberflus as a head coach and like a game manager, I think they miss his defensive mind in that coaching room, on that coaching staff. So we'll see. I think this is going to be a big like CD Dak week. If you have that stack, I think you're going to be very happy about it. All right, now next we got the Sunday night game. It's going to be Kansas City Chiefs going into New York to play Yanni's second team, the New York Giants. And I have an axe to grind with this Giants team. I'm not very happy with them. More on that in a minute. The Chiefs have an implied team total of 25 points, and the Giants have an implied team total of 19.5 points. For the Chiefs, we're going to start Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce. We're going to sit Hollywood Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, and Kareem Hunt. And we're getting a tricky decision as Xavier Worthy, who looks like he's trending to be back this week, but pay attention to the injury reports. For the Giants, our only start for you this week is Malik Neighbors. We're sitting Russ and Cam Scattaboo, and we're tricky decisioning Wandale, and we're also sitting Tyrone Tracy. So let's start with the Giants first, because I kind of did a little spoiler alert. It looks like we have a backfield takeover. We have our first like major backfield takeover of the year. I know it's only like 1/2 of a sample size, but the noise around Tyrone Tracy is really fucking bad, boys. I'm a Tyrone Tracy drafter this year. I am not happy about it. I guess to like put the story in as short terms as I can, right? Week 1, I guess like Tracy said something about like wanting to run the ball on the 1 yard line. He didn't. I think the Giants like did play action or something on the 1 yard line, and Brian Dable I don't think took that very well. The Giants' running game has been inefficient, but we saw Cam Scatterbo take over this backfield against the Cowboys in the second half. He wasn't very good either. He had the 1 21-yard run, but it was through a wide open hole. The rest of the time, these boys have been good for about 2 yards a carry, but usually when these rookies take over, it doesn't go back. And I think that Cam Scatterbo is probably the starting running back for the New York Giants here for the rest of the season, and Tyrone Tracy's on his way out. That being said, we're not starting him this week, though, because the Chiefs' defense is really good against the run. We're not starting Russ here. We're not chasing the big week last week. We know what Russ is as a player. He just does this sometimes. Sometimes he'll have these big weeks, and you're like, oh, is Russ back? And then he shows you why he's not. I think that, especially in prime time, it's going to be like a jarring sort of light on him as a player here. Then we're getting a tricky decision, Wandale, just because like I think last week he had like 25 or 26 points. Like, granted, it was a crazy offensive shootout, but he's been getting pretty good usage. Russ, I guess Russ is more willing to push the ball down the field, right? And the knock on Wandale forever has been he's the PPR scam. He just gets a bunch of small targets that do nothing. Listen, if he's winning on his routes and Russ is pushing the ball down the field, I like him a little bit more in fantasy. I don't like. I'm not itching to get him in my starting lineup here against the Chiefs in prime time, but I think he's worthy of like a DFS dart throw or like a flex option if you're dealing with injury or something like that. Then for the Chiefs here, I feel like this may be a get right game. Obviously, 0-2 is like a far cry from where I thought the Chiefs would be to start the season, but I feel like they outmatched this New York Giants team. So we're starting Mahomes here, and we're starting Kelsey because he's really the last man standing, or at least has been for the last 2 weeks. I don't love Travis Kelsey. He's like more of like a Jawan Johnson or lower tier to me. I'd probably start Jawan Johnson over Kelsey. We're sitting Hollywood, Pacheco, and Hunt. Hollywood, he came back down to earth last week. He's not getting 15 targets a game. That's just not what's happening. And now we have a better player that's at least going to be stepping on the field. We'll see what the usage is. Pacheco and Hunt, don't do it until one of them. I don't even want to say until one of them, because if Kareem Hunt gets all the work, I still am not starting him. But listen, man, it's a gross rotation. The Chiefs haven't looked interested in running the ball until further notice. Both of those guys are on your bench, and Hunt might even be on your waivers, and I'd be fine with it. The really big talking point here is, for me, Xavier Worthy. He's going to be coming back from his shoulder injury. This Chiefs offense desperately needs a playmaker, and he's a playmaker for sure. I was bullishly drafting Xavier Worthy all offseason. I was really excited about his year. The main reason he's a tricky decision for me is because it's going to be his first week back from the shoulder dislocation. In shoulder dislocations, like, they have a high re-injury rate, right? So if he gets hit wrong one time, I think that shoulder could pop out and you could see him be gone for the rest of the season. I don't know what the usage will be like here. Are they putting him on the field as a decoy? Is he actually going to get targets? I don't know what it is. You could start him. I think it's extremely risky, but you could start him and he could pop off and he could also do nothing. Like, so just kind of look at your roster, see what you need. Maybe if you need to like take a big old hack in your flex spot, go with Worthy. If you feel like you probably have the matchup wrapped up as long as you don't get zeros, I might look elsewhere. But that's what I have on this game. What do you think, Yanni?
So sorry, I just got an interesting trade from a roster where I kind of do need like an RB. So I went double hero RB. One of my heroes was Gibbs. The other one was Hampton in the mid-third round. So a guy wants to do a Hampton and Pittman for Hall and Mooney. And he hit me up saying, what would you think of Breece Hall and Mooney for Hampton and Pittman? I think you have to take that, right?
Yeah, I would. I think Breece Hall is by far the best player in that trade. So you get the
Just
best asset.
get Hampton mess. Like, he just had Ladd go down. Okay, sorry I was listening the whole time, but I was looking down at that. So I do want to hit on what you said on a few things. One, a little bit of a friendly intra-channel competition. I was a heavy Scatterbo drafter. Ted was a heavy Tracy Jr. drafter. I'm not saying Ted was wrong and I won, but I certainly wouldn't feel good if I was on the Tracy.
Hey, listen, I'll say it. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Yeah, no.
Now, to be fair, Ted laughed at me for taking Hampton at the 2-3 turn. He was probably right. It happens. I'm pretty surprised Wandale has popped as a player, but the volume was never the issue. The issue was it wasn't meaningful volume, and now all of a sudden he's getting meaningful volume. I'm not out on Pacheco. I still think Pacheco is the best running back on the Chiefs. If you see him on your waiver, go dump 5 or 10% of fab on him. It's worth it for the upside swing, in my opinion. Maybe I'm delusional. And then Worthy, like, it's just so scary starting him. We have no idea. Is this a decoy start? Is he out there with a brace and he's going to run 5 routes and go, I don't feel right, and go in? I don't know. He looked pretty good in practice. Hasn't really looked limited in practice. I don't know. It's pretty scary. What was the starter sit decision you had in our home league, Ted?
I have to flex one, and it's between T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, and Ricky.
Yeah, like, I think that's a really interesting choice. I mean, to me, like, I prefer T and Worthy over Parasol this week. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. If you're freaked out by the injury, fine. I think with the way Mahomes has been airing the ball out deep, I think Worthy might have a 20-point per game upside. It's certainly until Rice is back, maybe for the rest of the season. It's just weird. It's hard for me to parse. Okay, last game of the week, and should be a good one. Ted thinks it might not be. I think it'll be a good game. Lions, 23.5 implied team total, going to the Ravens with a 29-point implied team total. The Ravens lost a fluky one. They went, kind of toe-to-toe for a minute before blowing out the Browns. Been an odd start to the season for them, I would say. But the Lions had a 5-touchdown bounce back, or maybe more. Did they have rushing touchdowns too? What did they? They had more than 5 touchdowns.
They put up like over 50 on the Bears.
Goff threw 5 touchdowns against the Bears last week. Look, in this one, I think you're going to get a really offensive-friendly game script. So I think you're going to want to go Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Laporta, J-Mo. I think you're starting all of those guys. I think they're comfy, good starts for you. Normally it's going to be one of Laporta or J-Mo going off. I just think with this passing volume, you have to get J-Mo in your lineup as a flex. Like, there's a chance they might need to throw it 40 times this game. I'd love for him to get a little more consistent with the volume, but I just don't think that's the archetype of player he is. Goff is going to be a sort of tricky decision. So is Monty. I'm not sure how many goal line, little sneaks you're going to get inside the 10 with Monty this week. Gibbs has been seeing, I believe he's averaging 17.5 touches per game in the first 2 weeks, but Monty's averaging like 14, 15. They've still been feeding their running backs, as always. Gibbs is definitely getting the better end of it now, and he's starting, and he's getting the receiving down work, which I'm happy to see. I was a heavy Gibbs investor this year. But Monty's not going away. He's just not. And he's getting that high-value work inside the 10-yard line. I just don't know what that's going to be worth this week. Again, me and Ted disagree on this a little bit. I think the game script's going to be right, that if you need an emergency start, let it rip with Goff. He thinks the Lions get their teeth kicked in. They did last time they played. For the Ravens, you have your trinity of Ravens right now, and until proven otherwise, this is in fact a rock solid weekly locked in starting trinity, and that is Lamar, that is Henry, that is Flowers. Lamar Jackson, the number one asset in fantasy this year. He's been the number one asset since Todd Haley took over on the Ravens. He might have one of the all-time greatest 3-year stretches that any fantasy asset, actually I believe it would be the greatest that any fantasy asset has ever had over a 3-year run if he finishes as the number one overall player this year. It is just a joy to be a heavy Lamar drafter. Derrick Henry, you're never sitting him. And then Flowers, really curious to see if this keeps up. I mentioned earlier, I'm nervous to send Flowers plus a piece for Nico Collins. That's how high I am. I'm like kind of wondering. I don't know. Is this like a diet JSN? Is it? I mean, it might be. He's getting really healthy usage. I know that what's his name? Ryan Wormley on the Fantasy Pros, who's a diehard Ravens fan. He always is the guy that they go to talk about this stuff. He was fading Flowers all summer. Still says he would absolutely sell him to tear up. I take his opinion kind of seriously on Ravens stuff. He's pretty good with that. I don't know. To me, it looks like they sort of decided that. To me, it looks like it's a genuine year 3 breakout for Flowers. It looks like they're happy and willing to feature him in a role where he's getting design routes. He's moving inside, outside, and him and Lamar have a really good chemistry. I don't know. Maybe this is finally the year that he puts it all together, has 7 or 9 touchdowns, and you get a low-end wide receiver 1 year out of him. I don't know if I'm willing to sell on the hype. I think I'm really pretty high until further notice, and I love him in this week's match. He's in every one of my lineups. We're going to sit Likely if he goes. We're going to sit Andrews whether Likely goes or not. And we're going to sit Hopkins for this one. I know it's a pass-heavy game, and I saw Hopkins getting picked up in a few leagues, but I think you can find better options in 10 and 12 team redraft. Maybe in 14 he's going. I don't think that's a realistic start or even a tricky decision. He has looked good though. He's made a few catches, made a few big plays. And then please guys, for the life of me, since we didn't get to do the waiver wire show this week, please make sure Likely, if he gets ruled out, make sure he's in your IR spot. If he doesn't get ruled out and he's on waivers, put him on your bench. for all we know, if Andrews is really done as a player, likely might slide into that role. And we saw what he did last year with tight end one usage in the first week, right? I don't remember. Was it 2 touchdowns? He
Yep.
absolutely, right? So it's like this guy should not be on wire anywhere. On my tight end 0 rosters, I went and looked, and he was just sitting there for free. He's been sitting on my IR for 2 or 3 weeks, just waiting. Just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think for this Ravens team here, right? Like I feel like it's almost the exact same thing as last year, but I'm in the camp that Mark Andrews is completely toast, and I think that's part of why Zay Flowers has had such a good year. Zay to me has been great since his rookie year. I've had Flowers rosters every year except for this year, and like he's been a much better like NFL player than he has been a fantasy option, and it's just because he hasn't been getting the touchdowns, and Lamar has been more willing to throw to Andrews. But with Andrews being down for the count and likely not being in, like I think at least until the Ravens get more weapons, Zay Flowers, enjoy that win, boys. Round 6 was a steal. Then for the Lions, man, I think this is going to be a real measuring stick for them. This Ravens team, I feel like we know what they are. They're pretty good on defense, but they can be attacked in the air. Let's see what Jared Goff can do, man. You have no Ben Johnson. You're going outdoors, where he's historically been really bad. And he's going up. This is going to be fierce competition, right? Like, I'm still of the opinion that I don't really know what this Lions team is yet. I know they had success against the Bears. I think that was much more a product of the Bears being a just total clusterfuck of an organization than the Lions confirmed being back, right? So I think we'll get some more data this week and have like a more a more complete, I guess, assessment of the Lions, like probably come this time next week. But I think they get their teeth kicked in here. I think the Ravens take the belt to their ass. This may be showing up in the gambling show for me. Laying, what is that, 5.5 against Detroit? I don't think this line would have been possible last year, but I may be
Yeah.
in on it. We'll see. Yeah, and that's going to do it for us. If you made it through the whole video, thank you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. We had like the most hilarious recording issues this entire time. I'm going to be up late editing this video. Question of the day for the audience. What do you think, Yanni?
Does Zay Flowers keep it up? Will I regret not doing Zay plus a piece and tearing up into that Brian Thomas Jr., Drake London, Nico Collins tier? Am I a dope? Did I do the thing we always tell you about you draft someone and you feel smart and then you can't let it go when the time is to let it go? I'm worried I might be, but I think I'm going to ride it out. We'll see.
I prefer Zay Flowers to Nico rest of season.
That's wild. Zay Flowers or AJ Brown?
AJ Brown.
Okay.
I'm very low on Nico, though. I think that Texans thing is a disaster. But anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the gambling show.
Thanks, guys.